Hello, Aries. I don't know where you are in your life as you hear this. Maybe you've just woken up with a heavy heart, or maybe it's the middle of the night and you're sitting alone with no one beside you. But if you're here now, maybe your soul brought you at the exact moment it was meant to, because there's a truth about to be spoken, a truth that person once buried, even from themselves. But now it's rising from the deepest layers of their soul, and it all begins with a single act, one no one could have seen coming. You won't believe what your ex did with a photo of you. One moment, one decision, one haunting question whispered in a room filled with smoke, with incense and silent regret. That is where this story truly begins. So now, let me take you through the very first doorway where a truth that's never been spoken is finally waiting for you to walk in. Have you ever wondered what could possibly make someone who left you in silence quietly bring your photo to a stranger, sit across from a mystical soul, and ask about you? Not everyone has the courage to admit they still love the person they once broke, and even fewer are willing to face that guilt so deeply they turn to the unseen, to a world where words aren't spoken yet still heard. But they did, Aries. They brought a piece of you with them, placed your photo in front of someone they once called superstitious, not to curse, not to spy on fate, but because the missing turned into aching, and their soul couldn't take the silence anymore. They never said it, but you knew, you felt it in a dream, in a strange breeze brushing your skin while doing dishes, in an old song that randomly played and made your heart still. Your soul received the signal long ago, even if your heart kept denying it. People think only the weak seek answers from the mystical, but no one talks about the kind of despair that makes someone lower their voice and ask a stranger, "Do you think she still feels anything for me?" That question wasn't just a memory. It was a confession from a soul that once ran from love, and when faced with the emptiness you left behind, they had nowhere else to reach but the fragile hope that the invisible world still held a thread between you two. Aries, your name was spoken in a room lit by candlelight and incense, between walls soaked in prayers from broken spirits, and when your name left their lips, their eyes turned red, their voice trembled, their heart clenched with the truth they hadn't faced, that they never truly forgot you, and maybe never really loved anyone after you. The witch wasn't the one holding power. She was simply the one who could hear what the soul was whispering, and what she heard dropped your ex into the very void they had created. They thought they buried their feelings, but in that moment, with flickering light casting across their face, love rose like ashes caught in the wind. No drama, no noise, just awakening, one that hurts. Because in the end, people don't come to the mystical to change things. They come when they can't stand the voice inside anymore. They need someone else to say aloud what they are too scared to admit. And that's when your soul was mentioned, in whispers filled with trembling sorrow. You knew nothing of this. You were just living your life, learning to love yourself again. After all the numb and lonely months, teaching yourself how to smile, without tears behind your eyes, but somewhere else. Someone was quietly bowing their head beside your photo, asking, "What have I lost that I can no longer find again?" Love, when born from the soul, never disappears. It just falls asleep. And when a soul finally awakens enough to listen, love wakes up too, even if it's too late. Aries, you weren't the one seeking answers. You were the answer, because when someone turns to a witch because of you, it doesn't speak about who you are. It reveals everything about what they've lost and now desperately want back. You moved on, even with your heart still bleeding. You stood back up, even when no one knew how many nights you had to crawl through. And if today you're hearing this, it's not to go back. It's to know that your soul has left a mark on someone who once tried to discard you like an old coat. You're not a memory, you're a lesson. You're the mirror someone uses to face the part of themselves they ran from. And you're the reminder that love, when taken for granted, becomes the loudest regret in a life full of missed chances. Has anyone ever returned to your life in pieces like that? If they have, if your heart ever trembled when someone knocked, not with their hands, but with a shaking soul, tell me your story. I want to hear your heart, because I believe everyone carries a story they haven't had the chance to speak. And sometimes when we speak it, it's not to go back to the past, it's to finally step forward. Lighter, the eyes that welled with tears dried quickly as they walked back into the light. That room still stands, but they've already left, and the only thing left behind was the echo of your name hanging in the air, and a prophecy they can't forget, If you don't step toward her now, Aries will no longer be where you once left her. But life doesn't pause for predictions, it moves forward, and where their soul trembles, yours grows stronger than ever, because when love is torn apart by ignorance, the first thing you learn isn't forgiveness, it's how to protect yourself. And in that moment, a new light rises from the far side of the dark, a truth deeper, sharper, and somehow brighter waiting for you to walk into it, quietly now, Aries. But this time, you're stepping into a place no one else can control anymore, not even them. Your soul is awakening, and what you're about to see will make even the universe fall silent. Not every breakup starts with two people. Sometimes there's another hand, invisible, silent, poisoning the love you once protected with everything in your heart. Aries, do you remember that day when everything suddenly went quiet for no reason? When the one who used to hold you every night suddenly pulled away, avoided your eyes, replied to your messages like it was an obligation, when conversations turned into empty silences, when you could no longer see yourself in their eyes, you asked yourself, what's happening? What did I do wrong? Blamed yourself. You tried to change, tried to hold on to something that was slipping so fast your soul couldn't even keep up. And then you realized, no one said anything, no fights, no explanation, just one morning you woke up and knew they were no longer there, not inside you, and you found yourself in a gray, nameless fog. But what hurt most wasn't that they left. It was not knowing why they left. You weren't losing your mind, Aries. You were under attack, a quiet, calculated, violent attack aimed at the light you carry, the kind of light that threatens people who don't know how to love with a whole heart. The third person didn't have to be prettier than you, didn't have to be better. They just had to be poisonous enough to twist what was once straight, to whisper into their ear sweet words wrapped in toxic energy, the kind that pulls in anyone who isn't awake. They only had to plant one question. Do you think she's being real? Just one doubt. Maybe she's not the one, and that was enough. They didn't use knives, they used words. They didn't scream, they whispered in the dark, but those whispers, they were enough to shake a love that had been growing strong. Aries, when they brought your photo to the witch, you thought it was the beginning. But the manipulation had started long before that. That woman, that third person, she had prepared everything under the moonlight. With a breath twisted by obsession, she lit black candles, whispered your name, anointed your photo with oil, and prayed that your souls would be severed. And do you know what hurts the most? It kind of worked. You couldn't sleep. You had dreams with no beginning or end, dreams where you stood alone on a foggy road with no direction. You couldn't see where this relationship was going. You tried to speak, no one understood. You stayed silent, but your head filled with questions you couldn't answer. It wasn't your fault. It was an energy war. You weren't crazy. You were being disconnected. And even though you couldn't see the hand behind it all, your soul felt it. Something wasn't right. In Buddhist teachings, they call this karma, the weight of others' greed, hatred, and delusion, hitting your energy field like invisible arrows. It's the result of toxic words, of envy with no face, of actions so small, yet powerful enough to cut the cord between two souls. And the scariest part, most of us never even realize it. We think we're weak. We think we're not enough. But the truth is, light is always the first thing darkness tries to dim. The brighter you shine, the more you must learn to protect yourself, not through fear, not with walls, but with awareness. Awareness to see who's truly honest. Awareness to feel which energy is entering your space. Awareness to never let anyone touch your soul with poisoned hands. And you stood strong, Aries, even when you collapsed, even when you thought you couldn't go on, even when you cried in silence and no one knew, you still got back up. No one saw that, but I believe the universe did, and every tear you shed was recorded. Not one was wasted. You're not a victim, you're a warrior, and sometimes a warrior doesn't need a sword, just a heart that keeps shining in the darkest of nights. Maybe you didn't see anyone beside you back then, but your ancestors, the invisible guardians, they were always with you. You were never truly alone, and most of all, Aries, you overcame black magic with nothing but the energy of love, the love you gave to yourself. When a soul is strong enough, no curse can hold it. When a heart burns bright enough, no shadow can consume it. Some don't believe in spiritual warfare. They call it fantasy. But if you've ever had a relationship break apart without reason, you know what I'm talking about. Darkness doesn't always wear a scary mask. Sometimes it speaks sweetly. It hides behind concern. It disguises itself as a friend, standing just outside the story, and if you've been through that, I invite you to share it in the comments, not to dwell in pain, but to offer light to those still walking through the dark who haven't yet found the words for what's happening. Because maybe your honest story is the light someone else needs to find their way back home, and when you look back, you'll see it wasn't your love that was weak. You just loved someone who wasn't strong enough to hold that light beside them, but your light still lives and it's waking up. Once again, stronger, clearer, no longer for anyone to dim. It's getting ready to enter the most sacred part of you, a place where no hand will ever touch again, unless chosen by your soul itself. There are moments in life when we walk through pain so quietly we don't even realize we're still breathing. No tears, no screaming, just a long, silent stretch of stillness, as if the soul left before the body even noticed. Aries, have you ever been in that state, waking up in the morning and not seeing any point in opening your eyes, sitting in a room filled with sunlight, but feeling like you're drowning in darkness? No one asks where it hurts, and even if they did, you wouldn't know how to answer, because the pain isn't somewhere words can reach. It lives deeper, in a place no language can name. But what you don't know is you were never truly alone. The universe never left you, even when you believed it did. Your ancestors, the spirits who once held your hand, before you even had a body, they've been standing right beside you. Those who passed before you, in any form, have watched you. Every time you thought you'd collapse, have you noticed? That moment you almost couldn't breathe from the ache, and suddenly a strange breeze touched your cheek, or when you whispered, "I can't do this anymore," and just then a distant bell rang, a leaf dropped beside you, or a shaft of light broke through the clouds and landed right on your heart. That wasn't random. That was the universe, whispering softly, "You're being held. You're still seen." From a place beyond this one, when your love was cut off and when it felt like your entire soul was shattering, it was these unseen forces, gathering your broken pieces, wrapping them gently so they wouldn't vanish. You thought you had lost everything, but truth is you were being wrapped like a cocoon, silent, dark, but inside, a new life was forming, and no one could see it, not even you. You thought you were left behind, but really, you were being protected from what no longer deserved you. You thought you were being ignored, but really, you were given sacred space to hear your own voice again. You thought no one was there, but a whole army of light stood near, quiet, so you could learn how to trust your own intuition. Astrologically, Aries, you were born to lead. You're not the one who bows, you are the one who walks first. But sometimes, to walk a new path, you must pass through doubt, to reclaim the truth that was once taken from you. When you were pushed into solitude, it wasn't punishment, it was to show you that the light inside you has never needed anyone else to exist. The time you thought was empty was actually the soul's recovery, like a tree, standing still before it blooms, like the strange stillness, right before the sky breaks open in rain. No one saw that process, but within that silence, you were healing. Aries, what's truly admirable isn't that you were always strong. It's that you stood back up even when no one saw you fall. You quietly gathered the pieces of yourself without anyone cheering you on. You relearned how to breathe, how to live, how to love yourself without ever boasting. And maybe that is the highest form of courage, not needing to be seen to know your worth, not needing approval to believe you're enough, because real light doesn't wait for permission to shine. Have you ever felt like someone was silently protecting you during a storm? That moment you almost collapsed, but somehow you kept walking. I don't think that's an accident. And if you've had a moment like that, even the smallest one, I invite you to share it, not to dwell in the past, but to remind yourself just how strong you've been, because when you cross that threshold, you'll see you're no longer the same person. You don't need someone else to feel whole anymore. You're beginning to love yourself again more fully than ever before. And while you've been quietly walking this healing path, there's another soul starting to stir in their own darkness. No longer at peace with someone new, no longer sleeping well at night. They no longer see you as the past, but as a dream they still can't let go of. But this time, if they want to return, they'll have to walk through truth, because you're not in the same place anymore. Your soul has stepped into a different space, and in this space, any old connection must now be cleansed through awakening. And in that sacred space, Aries, you're about to touch a new door, a door that can't be opened by hands, only by the soul, because beyond that door, a familiar voice is echoing from a dream they can no longer escape. Not everyone who leaves rests in peace, and sometimes the ones who seem to have forgotten you are the very people dreaming of you the most, not because they try to remember, but because their soul never really left. Aries, have you ever felt your heart drop in the middle of a perfectly normal day for no reason, like a quiet wave brushed across your chest, pulling you into stillness, even when everything around you was loud? Maybe it was a song from the past, playing at a cafe you'd never been to, a scent that brushed past you at the evening market, a name that slipped through someone's lips, and suddenly, your breath caught. Not because of memory, but because a soul was calling out to you from a distance, and that soul only had one way left to reach you: through dreams. Somewhere across the city, in a bed that no longer holds your shape, someone who once turned away from you is dreaming of you over and over again, night after night. And in those dreams, you don't yell, you don't accuse, you just stand there, quiet, gentle, sometimes smiling, sometimes with tears in your eyes, and on certain nights you reach out, hold them, and whisper, "I forgive you." But other nights, you turn your back and walk away without a word, and that silence is what jolts them awake, their chest aching as if someone touched the very emptiness they've tried so hard to hide. Aries, that is not just a dream. Not every dream is a trick of the mind. Some dreams are real meetings between souls, when all masks have fallen, when the ego is exhausted, when logic can no longer control the heart. And in those moments, you are where they return to unconsciously, because deep down, even if they never admit it, you are the piece of their soul they lost, not just in this life, but maybe in lifetimes before. So what happens when someone who walked away starts remembering you like a song they can't delete? What happens when they look into the mirror and realize the emptiness isn't from someone new, but from losing you? What happens when the silence of the night finally lets them hear their own voice? That is the beginning of karmic awakening. It's the moment when all the things they ignored, took for granted, or dismissed as not important begin to burn quietly from within, because no one can outrun truth forever. No one can fill their soul with something fake for too long. They can smile, they can fall for someone else, they can build a whole world that doesn't include you, but all it takes is one dream, and suddenly everything breaks open. That dream becomes the only doorway their soul still has the courage to walk through, because in that space, no one judges them. There's only you standing in a faded light, saying nothing, yet making their heart ache so deeply they forget how to breathe. And that's when they finally understand you're not their ex. You're the one they never had the courage to keep. You know, in a world full of polished performances, the one who truly misses you won't look for you in public. They'll look for you in dreams, because that's the only place they can see you again, with the same eyes, the same emotions, the same heart they once held and let fall in silence. Aries, dreams are the final gateway of the soul. It's the one place no one can pretend. And when they dream of you, it's not because you showed up. It's because their soul is trying to return, to ask for forgiveness, to touch what they once believed would always be there, until it wasn't. But what about you? You're not dreaming about them anymore. You don't flinch when someone says their name. You've learned how to breathe without needing anyone to touch your back. You've stopped waiting for a midnight message. You now say goodnight to yourself. You moved forward quietly, without chasing, without begging, and that's what scares them, because they know when Aries goes silent, you're no longer standing at the old door. You've risen to a higher place, a place not everyone is clean enough to enter. They may try to come back, they may search for you one last time, with nothing but the raw truth of a soul, terrified it lost something priceless. But this time, if they want you to hear them, they'll have to knock with maturity. No more half promises. No more beautiful dreams that fade by morning. Only real action, real heart, real soul. Because you're not the same. You are the one who walked through the dark and brought back light. The one who survived an unnamed goodbye and still held onto your kindness. And in the moment they dream of you walking away is the moment you're stepping into a new reality. One where love is no longer a transaction. A place where your soul doesn't need to be searched for in dreams. Because the one who truly deserves you will show up in real life, with open arms and a heart no longer afraid of the truth. Some flames only bring a little warmth on a cold night, but others are forged through darkness, through pain, through betrayal, until they become a light no one can hold on to unless they know how to cherish it. And you, Aries, you are that flame. No longer the fire that dies out from a cold word. No longer a light that needs protection. You are fire born from ruin. You don't burn from hatred. You burn from the love you've finally given yourself after losing too much. They might come back, but this time they'll meet someone else. Not the one who stayed up waiting for a message. Not the one who shrank just to fit inside someone's life. Not the one who forgave too early, hoped too much, and held on for too long. The person they meet now is you after you've walked through the deepest pain and returned with your own light. You rose from the ashes. No one lifted you. No one reminded you to keep going. You did that yourself, and that's why, from now on, you get to choose. Not everyone who returns deserves a second chance. Not every apology is enough to restart the story, and not everyone who hurt you automatically earns a way back in. Forgiveness isn't weakness. Forgiveness means you no longer let pain control your life. It means you let go of the weight, not for them, but because you deserve to feel light again. But a second chance, Aries, that's something different. A second chance is not for souls who still carry half-truths, not for people who only come back because they feel empty. Second chances are for those who return with a whole heart, with clear action, no longer led by fear or ego. And you can see that clearer than anyone now, because you were the one who had to pick up the shattered pieces of your heart in silence. You were the one who trusted a gaze only to be left behind by the very hand that once promised to hold yours. And you were also the one who, piece by piece, step by step, learned how to love yourself again. You didn't move forward because you stopped hurting. You moved forward because you chose not to let that pain define you anymore. They might come back. They might say they've changed, that they dreamed of you, that they saw your light and finally realized. No one else compares, but this time, you don't need those words to believe, because now you believe in yourself. You know. The light inside you can't be stolen. You understand. Your heart cannot be owned unless it's held with both hands and with truth. So let your heart answer, Aries. Will you open that door again? Or will you let go with gratitude, not resentment? Either way, you've already won, because you don't need them anymore to feel whole. You are the one rewriting your story now. And if you're willing, tell me, will you keep walking alone, or will you let someone new walk beside you, this time for real, not for judgment, just to know that whatever choice you make, you made it from your true heart? And if you've ever wondered, how do I know I've truly moved on? It's not when you stop thinking of them, not when you stop dreaming of them. It's when you see that same look in their eyes, and your heart no longer trembles. It's when they return and you feel so calm, you no longer need them to stay. That kind of peace doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from remembering enough that you don't need to remember anymore, and maybe that moment is closer than you think, Aries. So close, you just need to take one deep breath and feel the freedom rising from your very own soul. Not everyone who leaves and comes back does it out of love, and not everyone who stays does it with honesty. But you, Aries, you've learned the greatest lesson of all. Love isn't measured by who comes or goes. It's about this. When you stay with yourself, do you feel whole? You used to believe if they came back, if things were fixed, if you could start over, then maybe you'd feel complete. But time has taught you something softer, something deeper, like water running beneath the surface. You've always been whole, even when someone else couldn't see your worth. You no longer need anyone to return to feel complete, because you're not a half looking for its missing piece. You're a soul who learned how to heal from the inside out, on your own. No validation needed, no begging to be chosen, no waiting on a late apology to know your worth. You've been through pain, you've been broken, you've wondered if you'd ever rise again. But you did, not because someone showed up, but because you showed up for yourself. You walked through the night, while no one saw the light in your hand flickering out. You crossed the storm on bleeding feet. No one stopped to bandage. You cried, but you kept going. You fell, but you rose again. And today, looking back, you'll realize something. The one most deserving of your gratitude isn't the person who once claimed to love you. It's you, for never abandoning your soul, even when everything around you tried to convince you to. Maybe you haven't met the one who truly sees your light. Maybe they'll come, maybe they won't, but either way, it no longer defines your value. You've learned how to love yourself without feeling lonely. You've learned how to walk forward without waiting for applause, and you've become the kind of person you could sit beside and say, I'm proud of you for never walking away from yourself. Healing doesn't mean the pain is gone. It means the pain no longer runs your life. It means you can look back and smile, not because you forgot, but because you've made peace with it. You're no longer hoping they return, no longer wishing what if, no longer waiting on a message, a promise, a midnight call. You have yourself now, and you know that's enough, because the one who's truly meant for you won't keep you waiting. They'll come with clarity, with a grown heart, with actions you don't have to question. And if they never come, you still have a life wide open and waiting. You've got dreams untouched, places unseen, sunlight still pouring through your window, music finding its way back into your chest. And you still here, even after so many have left. And I, the voice sharing this journey with you today, just want to say one last thing. Before we close this story, thank you for staying, for still believing in love, even when the world made you question yourself, for not letting go of your softness in a world that often demands we harden. I hope you keep that light, even after all the dark, even when people come and go, even when a song or a memory pulls at your heart again. I hope you still remember this. Every breath you take is proof you're still rising, not because someone came back, but because deep down you've always been enough.